50mm isn't just another focal length for me. For years, it's been my go-to, the focal length I'm most comfortable at, and the one I spend countless hours walking around shooting with. That's why choosing the right 50mm really is so important to me. And if you followed me either here or on Instagram for any length of time, you'll know I have a favorite lens, almost since the time it came out. And that's this big bopper, the Canon RF50 1.2. A large majority of my favorite images from the past few years have been captured using this lens, offering superb image quality and a charm I could never quite put my finger on. But we have one obvious downside, and that's the size and weight. There is a little bit of a trade-off when you want that super fast f1.2 aperture, but there's no denying this thing's hefty. But with Canon's new RF50 1.4 VCM on the table, coming in much lighter while still carrying the prestigious L series badge and even adding some extra video friendly features, naturally I wanted to give it a try. So I picked this up about a month ago, right before my recent trip to Japan, and I've really put it through its paces, capturing as many photos and videos as humanly possible over a 3-week period. One thing's for sure, the weather sealing definitely stacks up. I can confirm if you love getting repeatedly drenched in snow, it holds up just fine. But the question I want to answer is, could this become my go-to 50mm? Could it actually replace my beloved 1.2? Let's find out. So right away, the RF50 1.4 VCM has a few standout advantages, especially for video. As part of Canon's new hybrid lens lineup, it includes a declicked aperture ring, minimal focus breathing, super fast, smooth focusing. It also shares a unified size with other VCM lenses, making it a great option for video shooters wanting consistency in their lens lineup. But while video is still important to me, my priority is definitely on stills. So the real question is, how does this perform just for photography? That's ultimately what I wanted to find out. To quickly touch on some other features, much like the 1.2, we don't see any image stabilization. And as I touched on, like other L series lenses, you'll find this lens really stacking up fine in challenging weather conditions. Naturally, the first thing I loved about this lens is the reduction in size and more specifically weight. But with this improvement on usability from the 1.2, are there any compromises on the image quality? After all my testing, I really have no complaints, and it's hard to fault the results in any way. This lens renders beautiful results across a range of different apertures. Wide open at f1.4, the differences in image quality compared to say f4 are only quite minimal, and you'll really only notice these if you are pixel peeping, which again, I don't find particularly useful for real world usage anyway. As expected from an L series lens, image quality really is top tier. Even at 1.4, the level of sharpness, contrast, and rendering is super impressive. And even at its price point, it's hard to see anyone being disappointed with this lens. Remember, not all 1.4 lenses are the same, but the bokeh produced by this lens I really do enjoy as well. But does it have the same charm as the f1.2? That's harder to say, and naturally this is somewhat subjective. With the 1.2, there's always been this intangible quality I couldn't quite put my finger on. Something beyond just this clinical sharpness we see on so many modern lenses. Had this real character to the images that I always enjoyed. I really love the results from the 1.4, but I think I do need a little bit more time with it to see if it has that same level of magic. In terms of light gathering and the bokeh, sure, f1.2 has a slight advantage, but how important is that little difference really? A few years ago, I would have said it's totally worth carrying around the extra weight. These days, I find myself narrowing down the aperture probably more frequently and trying to really focus on my composition rather than just having nice, shiny, shallow depth of field. That said, it's nice to have, and at f1.4, it still delivers plenty of subject separation and a beautifully smooth background blur. And again, I really like the bokeh produced by this lens, so letting go of the 1.2 isn't a huge deal breaker for me at this stage. If you do like the images in this video and want to achieve a similar result with your edits, please do check out my presets, which are linked in the description. I've crafted these down over time to make my editing process as simple as possible. I've also added a bunch of bonus effects and borders which I use all the time in my editing. Another point I wanted to touch on is the value for money. The price tag on the f1.2 is definitely as hefty as its weight, But honestly, I think for the usage I've had from this lens, it's been worth it for me. This might not be true for everyone though, as situations and usage can really differ. Check the price in your country, but here in Australia, it's almost a third cheaper. Still not a cheap lens by any means, but all things considered, the 1.4 VCM is potentially a bit better value for money for a lot of people, in my opinion. If you are on a bit of a smaller budget, of course, you can consider the f1.8 version as well. I've got an older video comparing it to the 1.2 if you want to check that one out as well. Honestly, the autofocus is flawless, both for stills and video. Paired with the Canon R5 Mark II, which is the only camera I've used this lens with so far, it's incredibly fast and accurate, never missing a beat, and there's really nothing much else to add. If video is more of a priority, the f1.4 does have a clear edge over the 1.2. The new VCM focusing system is definitely smoother, with little to no focus breathing, while still being incredibly fast and responsive. For my style of run and gun video work, the improvements are marginal, but they are definitely there. If video is a significant part of your workflow, this lens might be the better choice. Sadly, like a lot of photographers, I think this de-clicked aperture ring isn't something I'll personally get much use out of, but hopefully others do because it's a little bit wasted for me. Alright, so here's why this lens for me truly wins. Maybe no surprises because it is quite simple. It's the usability. I put up with the size and weight of the f1.2 for a long time, and honestly, I mostly got used to it. But there's no denying that walking around with the 1.4 all day is simply much more comfortable. As a travel photographer who spends entire days just walking around on foot, this is a major benefit. If you are after the absolute best bokeh and don't mind a little bit of extra weight, then the 1.2 is still a phenomenal choice. But if you want a little more versatility, travel-friendly lens that delivers incredible image quality, the 1.4 is just a better all-rounder for me. So as much as I love my RF 1.2, I think it's time to say goodbye, and that's hard to say. It served me so well over the years. We've really spent some good times together. Maybe I'm not quite ready to sell it yet, but realistically, it definitely doesn't make sense for me to keep both lenses. So I guess I just need to accept it and move on. The RF50 1.4 VCM is my go-to 50mm. There, I said it. So that's my take. What do you think? Let me know in the comments which one you're picking. Keep on creating and keep on growing, my friends. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.